Well, go on, everybody. Lennox here from Simple 123 Trader. This is the weekly playbook outlook for the week of April 18th to the 23rd. Hope everybody's doing well and are safe. Let's take a look at the futures for upcoming week. And I'll start off with the Australian dollar, which is on the screen currently on the monthly time frame. And I'll just give you a synopsis of what I see setting up for the remainder of the week. So we're on the monthly time frame. We've got quite a bullish bar currently on the monthly. So if we go to the weekly and take a look at this, what we're seeing is we've had quite the move to this level back up to a previous resistance. And what I'm seeing setting up here is, yes, a move to the upside, which I do not believe will break the previous high, and we will only be going up and then coming back down in the long term. However, short term for this week, we have strength in the Aussie dollar. So on the daily time frame, this move will take us back up to the previous high to challenge the previous highs. But like I say, I don't believe it will break through that level. And you can see that we're basically forming a head. It's like a head and shoulders forming from this move. So it might be a little bit of a tilted head and shoulders, perhaps, but we'll get some strength going into this week on the Aussie US dollar. Okay, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin on the monthly also broke to new records, like I predicted from last week and the weeks previous, that we'd get into plus 60,000 up to the 65,000, and we did indeed. And on the weekly, looks like we're get this pullback is looking pretty serious here. So this is expected after this is strong moves to the upside. So from this level on the daily time frame, what I'm seeing is that we've completed that move and we've pulled back. We've come back to a very strong support resistance area. So the key question now is, do we continue down, and or we're going to be bouncing and continuing to the upside? So if we drop down one more time frame, this will give us a good idea. But right now, lots of weakness with Bitcoin. So if I go to the 4-hour time frame, we'll get a good idea of what's setting up. So what I'm seeing after this very strong move to the upside, it looks like we're probably going to bounce in here, a similar head and shoulders perhaps setting up, and that will give us another move to the downside to challenge this lower bounds before we get a respite and turn back. So in the short term, some volatility definitely, and then a move to the back to the upside in the short term. Okay, so looking like this week will be a little bit of strength, but I think it'll be short lived and we'll be heading back down. Okay, so that's Bitcoin. Let's take a look at crude oil. Crude oil on the monthly has also now reached a level where it's having a hard time breaking through this resistance area on the monthly. On the weekly time frame, very strong. It looks like it wants to push through this level. However, you can see it's a very strong resistance area, and now price is really trying hard to push to the next level, breaking 70 and so forth. So is it going to do that this week? It is definitely a possibility. It's looking pretty good right now that we could challenge the highs, the previous highs, and that's looking very good for oil going into this week. And of course, as time goes along, I would expect oil to get more go higher, because of course spring and summer are heating up, and the demand for oil, especially for gasoline vehicles and so forth, are going to be high. Okay, let's take a look at the Canadian dollar on the monthly. It has had quite a run. On the weekly, It doesn't look like it wants to pull back. It still wants to go, even though we're right at a very strong resistance area. There's still strength in the Canadian dollar, and it's still looking very strong and going into this week. So I'm looking for continued strength, pushing up to the 81 cents area for the week. Okay, the U.S. dollar on the monthly. Okay, on the monthly has had quite a drop, and it looks still like it wants to continue down. Okay, so on the weekly, I'm looking for further downside to the U.S. dollar and challenging the previous lows. Okay, so weakness in the U.S. dollar going into this week. It looks like that's going to be what's the catalyst here is just unknown at this point, but it is definitely we're heading to the downside. Okay, so weakness in the US dollar. Okay, on the euro, on the monthly, had quite the run as well, but it too is right now has dropped. But if the US dollar continues its move to the downside, we'd expect the euro to turn to the upside. Okay, so on the weekly time frame, you can see that we've hit that level where we should be expecting a turn, and that's what it's done. And now it's pushing back to the upside, uh, the opposite direction of what the US dollar is doing. So strengthen the euro if the US dollar continues its weakness. Okay. The next one we look at is the Swiss and the Swiss franc. Quite the drop on the Swiss franc. And it looks like it wants to turn to the upside again. So right now it's lots of strength going back up, but we could be done this move to the upside here, and we could have a pullback this week. So looking for a little bit of weakness in the Swiss franc. If I'm incorrect, price will continue its move, but it looks like we should get a pullback before that occurs. Okay. On gold on the monthly is desperately trying to turn around at this point. On the weekly, you can see that it formed a nice double bottom, and it's looking to push to the upside. On the daily, looking very strong now, like it wants to continue this move to the upside. We could see a little bit of weakness in the short term, but I think that this should continue pushing to the upside for the remainder of the week. Okay, Japanese yen on the monthly. You can see it, quite the drop on that one, but it's trying very hard to turn around. It's reached a level of support and now is pushing back to the upside. So let's see how strong that push is. Yeah, it's okay. It's not that great. I mean, we could see again another drop here before we get it before it turns and pushes back to the upside. So it's at a critical point. It's either going to continue or it's going to pull back, and I think the latter is going to pull back. Okay, so New Zealand dollar on the monthly, also very strong. And now looking to pull back, but it's got a strong green bar there on the monthly, and it's looking like it wants to continue its move to the upside. So similar to Aussie, the New Zealand are going to be doing a similar thing. If the US dollar continues this move down, we would expect this to continue its move to the upside. Okay, so we could see it coming back up to this area, forming a head and shoulders, just like the Aussie, and before we get a turnaround. So weakness in the US dollar will propel New Zealand dollar to the upside. Okay, the Mexican peso on the monthly. You can see on the monthly here, the Mexican peso is trying very hard now to push back to the upside. So we had quite the drop, but now it's still very strong, and it's hitting that resistance area. So is it going to cut through this week? Possible, but it's also, again, hitting a very sharp, hard resistance area. So we could have some volatility in here in the short term. Okay, so I'm not expecting any breakthrough. The US dollar weakness will propel this to the upside, however. Okay, the British pound on the monthly also pulling back, but will also be moving to the upside if the US dollar continues its fall. And so it looks also like it is ready to move to the upside uh, along with the Aussie, the Euro, and the New Zealand. Okay, so looking for further strength for these pairs against a weak US dollar. Okay, now we'll take a look at silver on the monthly. Okay, silver is pulling back, has pulled back, and is now sitting at a critical area as well, where it looks like it wants to push back to the upside. So on the daily time frame, you can see it is setting up for quite a move here. So if things play out, we should see a break of the 26.5 level to the upside for silver. So strength in silver going into this week. US 2000. This is Russell 2000 on the monthly. It's had quite the run and is still looking strong. It's hitting a sharp resistance area, but it's still looking quite strong, and looks like it's going to continue its push to the upside in the coming week here. Okay, so I'm not, it's in a little bit of a lull state right now, but I think we'll see further movements to the upside. So what I'm seeing overall is a continued move that will take us back to challenge the previous highs here. Okay, so that's the Russell 2000. The US, the Dow 30 on the monthly. We broke new records last week, and it looks like it's going to continue its move. Nothing is in its way at this point. What I'm seeing overall is that these bars are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So we might be getting, to that point where a little bit of exhaustion is setting in, but it's still overall not seeing like a turn that's going to be dramatic or anything like that. So maybe a little bit of hesitancy into this week, but overall still moving to the upside. The US 500, take a look at that one. Doesn't want to switch. There we go. On the monthly, similar to the Dow, strong, lots of new highs on the last week. On the weekly, we're still pushing to the upside. On the daily, we're still pushing to the upside. And then come down to the 4-hour, and it's a similar setup to the Dow. It's struggling a little bit at this point, but I still see further gains in this index. Okay, and lastly, the U.S. technology sector. The U.S. technology sector, there we go, on the monthly. Also, still lots of strength, very, very strong. Not going to be betting against any of those four indices. So looking very strong to the upside. Broke new records this week and has lots of strength going into this week again. So more new highs expected for this coming week. So not going to be betting against these guys at this moment in time. Very, very strong. Lots of movements to the upside still to come. All right, so that's a look at what's setting up. So keep your eyes on the US dollar if you're playing the major currencies, and profitable trading to everyone. We're done now. Thank you. Be safe.